Hey guys, today we're going to review the dollar CAD trade from last week and go over an update for the euro dollars daily bias, and moreover cover a new weekly bias on the dollar yen. Okay, so let's start with the dollar CAD.
Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by the setup I was looking at. So the last weekly short trade that formed was right here, and the last weekly long trade that formed was right here. And then about a month later, in this area right here, this bias was confirmed to be long. Or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. And then after price went up and pulled back right in this area last week, I took an aggressive long entry with a stop loss roughly at these levels right here. However, like I mentioned on the communities tab last week, current short strength formed roughly in these areas, and so I aborted this long entry. Okay, so let me explain what happened on this trade. Let's go over to the 1 hour chart. Okay, so on this 1 hour chart, last week there was a breakout and immediate break back in. However, price came up to its pivot high to make an aggressive long entry setup. And so I took a long entry at this area right here with a stop loss at this pivot low and its main target way above at that weekly bias's pivot high. Now initially we got this nice move up to these levels right here. However, immediately the following day price came right back down. And right at these levels right here, I was considering an abort of this long trade due to the possibility of current strength short forming. However, I decided to stay in this trade. And as price pulled down all the way down to these levels, right at this level right here, obvious current strength short was confirmed. So I aborted this long entry roughly at these levels. Okay, so I took about a 90 pip loss on this long trade. Okay, so let me show you the current price short strength that formed in these two levels. Let's go over to the 15-minute chart. Okay, so on this 15-minute chart, I took a long entry right at this level right here. And initially got a nice move up. However, the following day, price pulled all the way back down. Now, the first place I was considering to abort this long entry was right in this area right here. Now, first of all, you can see this nice staircase pattern, right? Which shows current short strength. However, current short strength must be decided by the candles on the pivots also. So if you look at the staircase pattern, if you look at this pivot right here and this pivot right here, there's a nice rejection candle on the bottom side, which is showing more long strength. And moreover, the next pivots right here, this is about even strength. However, right on this pivot right here, this is the reason why I was contemplating whether to abort this long trade or not. Now, this is because although both ends had rejection candles, the difference in the rejection length through the wicks show how much strength there is long or short. So in other words, this top candle's wick is longer than this lower one right here, right? Which shows a little bit more current short strength than long strength. However, I decided that the difference between the wicks was not big enough to abort this trade. Okay, so at this point, although there was current strength forming, I didn't think this current strength short was strong enough to make me abort this trade. Okay, however, price kept falling all the way down to these levels, and right at these levels right here, there was obvious current short strength forming, and so I aborted that long trade. Okay, so let me show you the obvious 5-minute current short strength that formed here. Let's go over to the 5-minute chart. Okay, so on this 5-minute chart, right at this point right here, there was obvious current short strength forming with a nice 1-minute staircase pattern down, and more of an obvious longer wicks to the top side. Okay, so right at this point, I aborted that long entry. All right, so let me show you how I view this weekly bias at this point. Let's go back to the weekly chart. Okay, so back on this weekly chart, at this point, since current short strength was created overriding that aggressive long entry, there's a very high possibility that this weekly bias has turned back into short. Or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. However, the only way I would trade this setup is if we could get some 4-hour or daily current short strength to form. So for example, if that forms in these areas right here, I'll be willing to take a short entry with a stop loss at this pivot high and its main target right here. Okay, and I'll keep you guys updated with this one. Let's go over to the euro dollar. Okay, and if you're having trouble understanding what I'm talking about in terms of biases and lower confirmations, please check out my analysis manual. Okay, and the link for that is in the details section of this video. Okay, this is the daily chart. Let me run you by the current setup I was looking at. So the last weekly short trade that formed was right here, and the last weekly long trade that formed was right here. Now the initial analysis for this bias was stating that this bias was short, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. However, in order to take an entry, I needed lower confirmations to form. In all of these areas right here, those continuous 5-minute lower confirmation forming in both directions over and over. So first, let me show you those. Let's go over to the 5-minute chart. Okay, so on this 5-minute chart, after that daily bias was formed as price rose all the way up to these levels, there was confirmation in this area right here confirming that bias to be short. Okay, so at this point, this pullback was actually a good thing. However, right at this area right here, now there was 5-minute confirmation confirming that bias to be long now. Okay, so although these 5-minute confirmations at times did not keep changing directions, but like in this case, there are times when they keep forming in both directions. And that's the reason why I don't show the lower confirmations on these lower time frames. Okay, so at this point, the 5-minute chart is confirming that daily bias to be long. However, I'm looking for a 1 hour or possibly even a 15-minute confirmation to trade this bias. So let me go ahead and show you what I'm looking at. Let's go over to the 1 hour chart. Okay, so on this 1 hour chart, next week, if price could break back into this trend line, however, come down to its pivot low, that'll confirm that daily bias to be short. However, on the other hand, if price comes up to this trend line right here, breaks it out, immediately breaks back in. However, price comes out to that pivot high, that's going to confirm that daily bias to be long. Okay, but no matter which way the bias gets confirmed, I am willing to take an aggressive entry on this trade also. So for example, if the lower confirmation confirms this bias to be short, I'll be looking on the 15 and 5-minute charts to see if there's any further strength short. And when that forms, I'll be willing to take a short entry with a stop loss at that lower time frames confirmations pivot high, while its main target being at the daily biases pivot low, right at this level right here. Okay, and I'll keep you guys updated with this one. Let's go on to the dollar yen. Okay, this is a weekly chart. Let me run you by the current setup I was looking at. So the last weekly short trade that formed was right here, and the last weekly long trade just formed this week right here. So the weekly bias parameters is between this pivot high and this pivot low. All right, so let's do our initial analysis. Let's go over to the monthly chart. Okay, so on this monthly chart, that weekly short trade formed right here, and that weekly long trade formed right here. Now, in terms of short strength, we have two miniature gaps right here, providing short strength for that short trade. And more for this long trade right here, we have this legitimate trend line that runs right through these levels, providing long strength, and more of this miniature gap also right here. Okay, so based on these monthly elements, I would say there's an equal amount of strength in both directions. Okay, so let's go up and finish up this analysis. Let's go back to the weekly chart. Okay, so back on this weekly chart, this short trade had a doji right here with a little bit of rejection candle, and moreover, we have a normal candle long. So I would say there's not much of a difference in terms of candle strength in both directions also. Okay, so in this case, since the initial analysis is about even in both directions, I'm going to need the lower confirmations to form to take an entry, and moreover to even set an initial analysis. Okay, so let me show you what I'm looking at in terms of lower confirmations. Let's go over to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart, we get a nice move up again right here and come down to this level, break it out, immediately break back in. However, price comes down to that pivot low, that will confirm that weekly bias to be short. And again, I'll be willing to take an aggressive short entry on this case also. So after the 4-hour chart can confirm this short strength, I'll be looking on the 1 hour 15-minute charts to further confirm that short strength. And I'll put the stop loss at that pivot high, while its main target remaining at that weekly bias pivot low right here.
Okay, so today let me go over how I approach aborting trades. Now for me, aborting trades is one of the hardest aspects of trade management. I mean, pulling the trigger and admitting that you're wrong about a trade is very difficult. So let me share with you the mentality that I have that makes aborting trades easier. Okay, so first of all, if you're gonna abort a trade, you're gonna need a legitimate price action reason to abort that trade. And it can't be based on personal circumstances, whims, or any type of emotion like greed or fear. Okay, so that's the first thing I make sure of. It's that until there's a strategical price action reason to abort a trade, I will not abort a trade. Okay, and this rule alone eliminates a host of illogical reasons to abort a trade. Okay, and moreover, making it a rule that you could only abort a trade if there's a legitimate price action reason to do so actually allows you to benefit from a trading loss. Okay, because if you only abort a trade when there's a legitimate price action reason to do so, that gives you the opportunity to enhance that abort strategy and further make that abort strategy efficient. Okay, but most importantly, it's the knowledge or the understanding that if you abort a trade only when there's a legitimate reason to do so, it's going to allow you to further enhance your strategy, is what makes aborting a trade easier. Okay, because it's much easier to take a loss when you know there's some type of benefit behind that loss. Okay, so always remember, if you're gonna abort a trade, always have a legitimate price action reason to do so. Okay, so that's it for this week's weekly analysis. I hope you guys have a great week, guys. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.